Hi, I'm Susanne. I'm a compulsive overeater, and I weigh and measure 3 meals a day from the Cambridge Gray Sheet, commit them to my sponsor, and I don't eat in between no matter what. Abstinence gives me my life. Wow. This is a great gathering. I'm just grateful to be here, and I wonder what higher power wants to be heard tonight in this meeting. I started out life not eating compulsively. I didn't start eating compulsively till about 8th grade. I did think compulsively. I was an obsessive thinker, and there were a lot of very confusing things in my childhood home. And there was disturbance in my childhood home. And so my logic didn't help. And I stopped trusting my instincts because my instincts were never very validated. So anyway, but I wasn't eating compulsively. Like, I didn't see a relationship between being uncomfortable and shoving stuff in your mouth. It wasn't a possibility. I just ate like a normal person. But when I was in 8th grade, I had a big loss happen. I had finally had a friend in 6th grade, and she was my friend for 6th and 7th grade. And when in 8th grade she went on with her life, I initially replaced her with fruit. And I would just eat like 3 huge fruits after dinner while I read the comics. And really a variation of that just continued till I got to program. Having a distraction, usually television, sometimes television and a book, sometimes just a book, a mystery or something, and eating, and just eating. And whatever was in the house of my parents, I would have to use that as binging fodder. And it was like a nightmare because I pretty much swelled up overnight over the course of about 2 years. But in the summer of junior year, I went to Israel. That summer I lost 10 pounds and I looked normal because I had started to just get a little chunky. So I came back and I was like, oh, that's chic. And then within 2 months, I gained 30 pounds. And I stopped doing my schoolwork. And it was a very tragic situation, I want to say, because nobody knew how to help me. And nobody knew how to help our family. Or if they did know, my family made sure not to receive the help. We were actually sent to family therapy, and when the therapist told my mother and sister that they were abusing my brother and me, we stopped going. So that's what it was, and I used food. As much sweets as I could find, just whatever, animal protein, whatever I could find. College was a nightmare. I'm sorry, if I tell my truth, like I always tell a different version, this is tonight's version. So I went to a college that I had never heard of, but I had stopped doing my schoolwork, so I couldn't go to any of the famous colleges I expected I'd go to. And at night, I would haunt the floors. We'd have these big dumpsters. I forget, they had some kind of a name. Maybe it was dumpster. But anyway, on the floor, and you would dump out your garbage in the kind of communal dumpster. And I was a good dumpster diver, and I would, open up those square boxes and take the remnants. It just was what it was. People in college had set up their rooms, and anyway, I just ate and ate, and I didn't like being fat. I didn't get fat to keep boys away, which was my across the street neighbor's brilliant psychological theory that I was afraid of men, so I got fat at puberty. No, I got fat because it's a side effect of eating. And just like bloodshot eyes are a side effect of drinking. So, and I was and I still am a very vain person. I love the arts, I love performing, and I wanted to look great, but I didn't have the option of stopping eating long enough to look a certain way. Now, I thought my looks were the big issue. I had no idea that my addiction to food was the headline, the fact that I didn't have a choice of when to eat. I remember in my 20s, once it took me 6 months to get a job interview to be a court interpreter, Spanish English interpreter. And the night before my interview at 2 a.m., I had to start eating something. And it wasn't because I was nervous. You know, people would always say, oh, well, is it fear of success, fear of failure? No, it was fear of being awake without food in my mouth. I mean, it was time to eat. I binged on the day of a very important recording session. I paid for the session. I went through with it, but I knew I was dead inside. So I never used it. I don't know where it is, and it doesn't matter. So, yeah, I didn't have any choice. Occasionally, I would gain choice, a certain kind of choice, because I would create a very rigid food plan for myself. And as long as I was following it, I was safe. And I remember the joy of those days of like, it's going to start now. My life's going to start. You know, I'd have feelings and stuff. God, a lot of this has to do with social connections. I was alone a lot, but I remember one time in college I had a best friend, and during that time I ate like she did, and she wasn't a big eater. And I was just in joy. I just had this adorable, charming person I spent time with, and in between meals I did other things, and I'd go to meals with her, and oh my God. God had to teach me, though, that there wasn't going to be one single person who was going to save me. But I will tell you that having zero friends is a dangerous condition to be in. I'm not in that position today, but I have been in that position. And I'm not going to try to draw conclusions about how we're supposed to be so elevated that we can manage without having human warmth in our lives. I'm not sure about that, but I'm not here to theorize or lecture. But today, I am so blessed because I attract the creme de la creme in this program and out. I just have just beautiful people in my life. It blows my mind. And yet, as a result of the multi-layered disease, so, you know, trauma is at the bottom, then depression, then eating, for me, in my experience. I've had profound clinical depressions while abstinent for many, many years. So it wasn't always a direct connection. Anyway, I'm where I am at 66 years old. I am kind of just like the little birdie peeking out of the nest and going, oh, what an interesting world. I'm kind of learning how to work, learning how to study, kind of. Not great at any of it yet, exactly, not enormously organized, but things do get done sometimes, and it's incredibly gratifying to create something, write something, finish some assignment, read it over and over because I really like it, and I can't believe that I wrote it. I actually don't ever think that I wrote it. I mean, some of the stuff that I write, and I'm not trying to be grandiose. I believe this is true for all of us. We're channels. And anyway, like I absolutely can't explain some of the things that come out of me. And in the other direction too, I can't control when I humiliate myself, say absolutely the wrong thing. It's all getting better. I get wonderful outside help. I've learned so much about appropriateness. But it's a walk. And plus, I'm never not going to be human. And that's something my therapist helps me know, that like actually all human beings fall flat on their face at times. But there's a difference. But this isn't an ACA qualification. My weight at the top weight was about 50 pounds heavier than this. I was also bulimic at that weight. I puked so I could keep eating. I hemorrhaged my vocal cords more than once in my life. I've had 2 surgeries. Each, my cords have been repaired from an irreparable state twice by expert ear, nose, and throat surgeons. Most recent time was my last relapse, because I relapsed, so I had to throw up because I couldn't stop eating. So I had to hemorrhage my vocal cords. So 6 months later, by the grace of God, I had surgery and my voice is healthy. The disease, as it expresses itself, is very powerful in my experience. The way that it'll pretty much take anything and try to grow it so that it becomes horrible. A mistake, an injury, not the injuries as much as like the mistakes, self as monster, fear that I won't get an even chance, fear that people don't like me, that I'll be ignored, neglected. All those fears. It's gotten so much better in the 35 years that I've been in program, which also have included a lot of AA meetings. There's incredible wisdom in our community and out. I still have trouble when I'm like in a spiritual environment and somebody's obese in the spiritual environment, because I want to say the emperor has no clothes. Like, that person's an addict. If they were a heroin addict, they couldn't be here. But it's okay that they're a food addict. I'm talking about denial around compulsive overeating, which runs very, very strongly in some circles. And the thing is, I get to choose who to trust. I get to choose that my spiritual advisors are not active addicts. I get to choose that today, thank you God, and my professional help. But I want to talk more about how like these voices amplify really quickly, and they're not based on the truth. I'm here to report that they are not truthful. They love to say things like, well, that's that, well, that's a wash, that's ruined, that situation is not redeemable. Lots of situations are redeemable. Time is a very big factor, and goodwill is a very big factor. And we are teachable when we're abstinent. I guess there was something recently, I'm setting up some things, and some of the tech stuff that's supposed to interface with what I'm doing didn't work, and there were no customer service people available. It was so uncomfortable. And because I didn't have the food to go to, I stayed on the planet and I found alternative solutions. One of my favorite hiding places is perfectionism. If it isn't perfect, I'm not going to do it at all. And I don't want to live like that, because I have to take care of myself, and I won't be able to with those attitudes. I love the way this program works. I love that I've learned that if I have a strong feeling, positive or negative, I need to be sharing it. I've learned through painful experience. Was that a warning, Matt?
Yeah, that's 15 minutes.
Oh, thanks. That if I think I can handle stress after stress after stress after stress without asking for help, at a certain point, the dominoes are all going to fall. In abstinence, it expresses in a less dangerous way, but a scary way, you know, something where it's like, oh, you weren't planning on eating your dinner at that moment, but all of a sudden dinner had to be eaten. And those are the red flags, and asking for help afterwards is also good. It's better to ask for help at all than not to ask for help at all. And I also always say that the call after the bite is also the call before the bite, because there's always a next bite. But if you can stop that runaway train, there's hope for the future. So it's always worth making a call at any moment. I'm just very grateful for what I'm learning, how much kindness there is here and in other programs that I'm in. I had to get another program because it requires specific treatment in the same way that the food requires specific treatment. You just can't throw the steps at somebody and say, now eat in a healthy way. There are other areas where I need very specific structured guidance on how to be healthy. So I'm lucky I'm getting that. My days are just better. Like, I don't get as scared as quickly. I don't panic as much. I don't get into despair as easily. I can pick myself up, brush myself off, and resume in a way I wasn't able to before. I'm also a little better about being more surrendered, humble, and graceful about things that don't work out. Not necessarily clinging to everything with my fingertips, like it has to work out. You must stay, whether you be a job or a client or a boyfriend or a friend or whatever. Like, woo. And often I find that higher power does for me what I cannot do for myself. And sometimes certain things just fall into place where restitution is made, something gets healed. Anyway, these days, my food is delicious. I'm postmenopausal. I can't eat the way I used to, but I mostly do eat the way I used to. But I'm making some little changes because of a wish to maybe drop a couple of pounds. And I'm in step groups. They're very powerful. I just did a 4th and 5th step this week, and the main resentment was myself. And I had never done it like that. This was the most powerful 4th and 5th I had ever done, because everything always came back to that anyway. And somebody said to me, my 5th step person, I'll end with this, if I can remember exactly how she said it, or somewhat how she said it. She said something like,
1 minute, Suzanne.
Thank you. We're wrong to think that that our character defects are the problem. She said the problem is being incapable of loving yourself with imperfections, because everybody's going to stay human. And yes, we can aim and we achieve higher levels. We do. We are creatures who are capable of growth and learning and greater expressions of love. We are those creatures. But it doesn't all have to happen in a day, all at once. And we're all exactly where we're meant to be. So that's it for me. Thanks.